it is my honor and joy to introduce Mary and O'Shea. They come to us from a group called From Death to Life, and you can learn more about that organization on their website, fromdeathtolife.us. And I will put that website into the chat so you can see it, and then you can go look at it after you hear them speaking, because that's a way for us to connect with them beyond this day. O'Shea Israel is a poet, a songwriter, a musician, a public speaker, a mentor, a father, a son, a friend, an advocate for peace and forgiveness, and a product of reconciliation between victims and offenders. And he says, most importantly, a man about change. If that's not a beautiful beginning to an introduction, I don't know. That's lovely. Mary Johnson Roy is the mother of a murdered child and the founder of From Death to Life, the organization that I just mentioned. Through participation in the restorative justice process, Mary transformed the anger and hatred that she once had into forgiveness and love. She also leads the Two Mothers Healing Group for mothers impacted by the tragedy of homicide. They both live in Minneapolis. And at this point, Mary and O'Shea, if you could please unmute yourselves and bring your camera back on. There you are. It is a joy to see you. Can we hear you?
I don't know. Can you hear us?
There we go. All right. The floor, so to speak, the virtual floor is yours. And I will indicate in about half an hour that we'll transition to question and answer. So this is all yours, my friends.
Okay, thank you. First of all, we want to thank you for the invite. We appreciate to be able to go and share our stories where we can. So thank you very much.
Cheers, though.
It's been a little while since we've shared our story. And I'm getting older and maybe forgetting some things. So O'Shea is here to remind me too. But as said, I'm Mary Johnson Roy. I'm the founder of From Death to Life. And underneath From Death to Life is a Two Mothers group. And those two mothers are also our mothers of murdered children and mothers of children that have taken life. This is what I know that God has called me to do, is to be a part of bringing these two groups of mothers together, getting to a place of forgiveness. And at this time, we have one mother that's on the other side. So we're just praying and hoping that there will be another mother that's on that side that will join us. Let's see.
What led you to create a group?
The murder of my child. Said I heard Holy Spirit, God, telling me that this is my call on life, to bring these mothers together. And due to my son's life being taken, I had to get involved and do what I know that I was supposed to do. O'Shea was a kid, age 16, correct?
Mm-hmm.
When he took my son's life. And I hated O'Shea. I wanted him to go to prison for the rest of his life, to never ever get out, never ever to be able to walk on the same ground that I walked on. And that's That's what I wanted. Like I said, God has given us each something to do, and this is what He wanted me to do. And I mean, it's been a road, but I am grateful and thankful that He has brought me through this journey. You know, the journey could have been worse, but the journey, it's good. If you understand what I'm trying to say, it could have been worse.
The 2 months poem.
Oh yes, and the two mothers group, it came from I was studying one day and I opened up this book and there was this two mothers poem, and it was about. Don't we have it? Could I take the time to read it?
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you. Take my glasses, please. Thank you. It says, a long time ago, so I've been told, two angels once met on streets paved with gold. By the stars in your crown, said the one to the other, I see that on earth you too were a mother, and by the blue tinted halo you wear, you too have known sorrow and deepest despair. Ah, yes, she replied. I once had a son, a sweet little lad full of laughter and fun. But tell of your child. Oh, I knew I was blessed from the moment I first held him close to my breast. And my heart almost burst with the joy of that day. Ah, yes, said the other. I felt the same way. The former continued. The first steps he took, so eager and breathless, the sweet startled look which came over his face, he trusted me so. Ah, yes, said the other, how well do I know? But soon he had grown to a tall, handsome boy, so stalwart and kind, and it gave me so much joy to have him just walk down the street by my side. Ah, yes, said the other mother. I felt the same pride. How often I shielded and spared him from pain, and when for the others so cruelly slain, when they crucified him and they spat in his face, how gladly would I have hung there in his place. A moment of silence. Oh, then you are she, the mother of Christ. And she fell on one knee. But the blessed one raised her up, drawing her near, and kissed from the cheek of the woman of tears. Tell me the name of the son you love so, that I may share with your grief and your woe. She lifted her eyes, looking straight at the other. He was Judas Iscariot. I am his mother. I just opened up the book, and that's where the poem that it fell to. And I'm just like, wow. This is what you want me to do, is to bring these two mothers together. And I didn't think that it would be possible at the time to bring them together. But we went on in hoping that that day would come when these two mothers can come together and heal together. And I was like, at first, oh boy, I don't know if I'm gonna be able to do any of this. But I thank God that my heart's been changed.
The meeting.
Hmm?
You setting up the meeting?
The meeting.
Yeah, you setting up for the meeting. Asking to come speak with me.
I didn't hear you.
You asking to speak with me in prison?
Oh, yes.
Mhm.
Thank you. I tell you, I'm getting old, but thank you.
That's what she has me for.
Yeah. So we're doing this, and I am, trying to be obedient to all that I hear that I'm supposed to be doing. So I, changing my mind and wasn't an opportunity. But O'Shea and I, after we came together, I'm kind of
12 years into my sentence, you decided to reach out. Well, hello, I'm O'Shea. The part that we were getting ready to share is I've been in prison for 12 years at the time, and Mary decided she wanted to reach out and speak with me in order to get her do her work that she wanted to do in accordance with the Two Mothers group that she had to make sure that she was able to forgive me and be able to move forward and move on. So she reached out to me not 12 years into my prison sentence. And at first I declined. I didn't want to meet with her. I didn't see a purpose in meeting with her, purpose with talking to her. I'm in prison. I'm serving my time, minding my business, just doing what I had to do for myself. And Mary was persistent. So she pursued a couple months later to meet with me. And this time I agreed, after speaking with some of my fellow inmates and some of my relatives and friends and things of that nature, I agreed to go ahead and meet with Mary because I felt like if if the shoe was on the other foot and I was murdered, I would hope the person would be man enough to answer my mother's questions, whatever she had to ask, and kind of help her get over what she needed to. And if I held that expectation, I myself had to live up to it. So I agreed to meet with Mary, and in preparation for it, it was victor offender dialogue through restorative justice. And in preparation for that meeting, we had to have 4 2-hour meetings with 2 mediators to discuss, what Mary and I were comfortable with speaking on. Were we doing this for the right reasons, and to get kind of check each other's temperature as far as it goes.
Yeah.
And then soon that day arrived, and we had our chance to meet when I was in a Stillwater prison.
Yeah.
Mary came up to visit, and she brought her friend Regina with her. She can tell you the rest of that part.
Okay. Yeah, I brought Regina with me. Regina had stepped in to help me to do the things it needs to do. But that going to Stillwater, that was really something. And Regina was there to support me, and she has been there for a while. And we went through restorative justice training, and then O'Shea finally said, okay to meet with me, correct?
Mm-hmm.
And Regina, she helped more with when it was time. I want to say it was, help me.
Yeah, as the day we were set to have our meeting, Regina accompanied Mary to Stillwater, as support and things of that nature. And I guess Mary was having apprehensions before walking up to the prison, like, what am I doing? I'm coming here to see the guy that murdered my son or whatever. And as she was going up the ramp, and with those apprehensions, Regina was there, I guess, the right person to have with her because she pushed her up the ramp and told her she's doing what she's supposed to be doing.
Yeah.
And they led Mary and Regina inside of the prison. Stillwater, and that's when Mary had to prepare herself to have a meeting with me, and they had a room set up for us all to meet at a round table, so to speak. And before I came in, I guess Mary had an issue with her hands and dryness. I'll let her tell that story.
Wow. Yeah. It was already like a little problem trying to get in, but we got in. And we had the person that was part of restorative justice. He had, before we went to the prison, he had purchased some water, which he wasn't supposed to do, but he purchases water. And like I said, Regina pushed me up and got me inside there. And then we went through all the being checked to see if we had anything on us. I'd never been in prison before. It was really different. So we got inside, and they gave us all water, but they did not give O'Shea any water. And I was asking her, well, you think we're going to sit here and drink water, in front of him? I never wanted to have that great big deal, but how do you think we're going to sit here and drink water and he not have any? So that really, I didn't think that was the right thing to do. Well, they finally gave him some water. I guess I had spent enough time on it saying, hey, he should be able to drink some water with us. And then the second thing that went on in that meeting was that, excuse me, was
your hands being dry.
My hands being dry.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I needed some lotion, and we had a hard time getting inside the prison.
Mm-hmm.
But I needed some lotion, and so I asked them for some lotion, and the lady said, okay, I'll get you some lotion. I'm saying, okay, that's what I need is some lotion. My hands are really dry. And she finally came back in with this lotion. And I looked at it, and it said, beyond belief.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, this is exactly what's happening. It's unbelievable that sitting here waiting to talk with O'Shea, waiting to meet him. And I was just like, whoa, beyond belief. And that's exactly that was happening, was unbelievable. Mm-hmm. And O'Shea and I, we talked. And at the end of the talk, did I miss anything before that?
Mm-hmm. No, we spoke, and in our speaking, you said you had your questions that you wanted to ask. Why did I change my name? Did you forgive me? And we always forget the third question that you had. Our conversation went so good that some of those things were answered, but we never got into a lot of detail about what was going on and stuff. Oh, she wanted to know more about me, what I was going through in there. So we spent a lot of time just getting to know each other and sharing our life story with each other, and wind up overlapping the time, and we had to agree to try to meet with each other one more time to kind of get those questions answered and see where things would go. And in the end of the meeting, I asked Mary for some odd reason if I may give her a hug, and Mary said yes. So we both walked around the table to hug each other, and once I wrapped my arms around Mary, she just like broke down, and I just had to basically stand there and try to hold her up try to support her as much as I could, which in my situation was at the moment I considered weird because I've never been put in this position before. Here it is, I've taken this lady's son's life and now I have to console her and hold her up. And I always tell people I think that's the moment where Mary and I made our bond at, because we were both in a vulnerable state. We have to support someone, show somebody that I care, hold them up, me be emotional, and then her breaking down in front of the person who took her son's life. So we embraced and held her up, and I told her I would never lie to her, never try to hurt her. Anything that I can do as far as our situation to make it better, I was willing to do, whether it's go speaking or do anything. I made that vow to her then. And as I left the room, I believe she had a conversation with Regina, who was her support person.
Well, I just began to say, I just hugged the man that murdered my son. I just hugged the man that murdered my son. And Regina came over and stood there with me, and because I had begun to fall. And she held me, and I began to say, what did I begin to say? I began to feel something in my body, starting at my feet. I began to feel something moving up, and it just kept moving up and moving up, and I felt it move out. And I told him, I know that, hey, I have done, well, me and God has done what I'm here to do. But I tell you, I felt something that just was moving. And I believe for me that that was the enemy and that I was delivered and set free from that demon.
And then it was from that point on that they had set up the second meeting for Mary and I to speak, to meet with each other, with the mediators. And at the end of that, end of that meeting, it went so well that the administration in Stillwater wanted us to present our story to a group, restorative justice group, and to the population. So we both agreed to do that, and I was shipped out of Stillwater to another facility, and they had heard about Mary and I speaking in Stillwater in another group that we had started for restorative justice in the next facility, and Mary was invited in for she and I to speak, and that kind of began our journey of us speaking together. Started in prisons, different prisons that I went to, and I would say a couple months after I came home, I kept my promise. There was a speaking engagement, and I told her I was willing to do it once I came home. And we began speaking with each other, and here we are today, still sharing our story.
I think one part we never shared is, the welcome home that we had for you.
Yeah.
And your mom was, I think, was she at the welcome home or at the other?
No, that's the funny part.
Yeah.
Upon my coming home, Mary and a group of her friends who were supporting her on the outside had all agreed to have a home welcoming party for me, to welcome me back in the community and let me know that they, anything that I needed, they would try to help facilitate and get me back, just thriving out here. And it was a really, really good meeting. Just the power of what was happening between Mary and myself. There was one particular person who heard about she and I meeting in our story, and he came all the way from Chicago, Illinois, drove from Chicago to Minnesota just so he can be there for a few seconds to witness it with his own eyes, the forgiveness aspect. That was really kind of the catalyst for me to really get my life going. was that meeting, and that's how Mary and I wind up living next door to each other as well. Because Brian Mogren, a friend of Mary's, and he's on the board for From Death to Life, he gave a suggestion. He asked me one day, how would I feel about living next to Mary? And I was like, I don't know, maybe it'll work. At the time, I needed somewhere to stay, so I was okay with it. And he asked Mary, and Mary said, he's not going to want to live next door to me, but I think she said okay so she can keep an eye on me. And so that's how it started with her. She and I becoming neighbors, and we lived next door to each other for maybe 3 years. And there was a meeting. Her and we had a group, or it was one of those homecoming meetings, and they invited my mother down. And I told, Mary asked me would my mother want to come, and I said my mom wouldn't want to come. That will probably never happen. And Mary and Brian had a conversation about it as well. And Mary expressed the fact that my mom probably would not come. And to both of our surprise, she agreed to come to the meeting. So with my mother coming, I decided to skip that meeting because I didn't want no parts of that.
Yeah, ran out.
Let them have their own moment. But they had a good meeting from what I hear, and they kind of built their own bond. Over the years, they haven't talked as much, but they do ask about each other every time you turn around. So you guys need to get your phone calls into each other, because she asks about you all the time, So I know it's still kind of difficult and strange for you all, but for the two mothers' sake, those conversations and dialogues probably need to be had more. We get into personal stuff on here, but So it's just Mary and I have been trying our best to do our work, to share our story, and hope we can, something that we say can resonate with other people to help them get past whatever it is that they're shackled to, that's holding them down, that's tearing them apart, and try to quell some of this violence that's happening out here. I know we're only two people with a story, but at the end of the day, if we can just reach one, and then that person reach one, it has a ripple effect, and who knows what can happen. And that's our goal, is really to reach as many people as we can and share that forgiveness is possible, that there's no such thing as impossible. You look at the word itself, it implies I'm possible. I believe us two sitting next to each other proves that point.
Amen.
You got something else you want to share?
I think that was it. I think you told most of the story. And we do need to have your mom come, and if she'd like to share sometime.
Yeah. I think one of the greatest moments in Mary and I story is Mary got married 3 years ago. It's been 3 years now? 4?
3, I think.
3, 4 years ago. And just to my surprise, her and her husband, asked me to participate in the wedding. And I ended up walking down the aisle with Mary and, her husband for her getting married. So that was like really, really a big moment, because, that's something that her son was supposed to do. And me being her spiritual son, I was able to do, to kind of step in and be a part of that. So that was a great feeling.
Well, yeah, I think people were really surprised.
Yeah, I think everybody was surprised.
Yeah, surprised. And I, why would you think I wouldn't do this without my son? Yeah. So that's basically it. I'm sorry for my forgetfulness, and I'm getting older. So I'd appreciate all the prayers, because I know that this is what I'm called to do, and I want to continue to do it. But I need to be able to remember.
Thank you both. Is now an okay time to to move into some questions? Or, yeah?
Yes.
Yeah. Well, first, I'd like to, again, thank you both for sharing the story. And I know that you share it a lot and that you have done this conversation in front of lots of groups for many years now. But it's still, this is the second time I've heard it, and it still strikes me how much you both, I begin to wonder how much you both have to give when you tell this story again, and how much it also, in reiterating how you two came together and reminding yourselves of that might also be a way to be life-giving. It's but we have a few questions and one of them is Mary. Somebody asked if you could say the name and the author of that poem. They found that poem to be powerful.
There is no author.
Yep, it was unknown. Yeah.
Unknown.
Oh, really?
Yes. We've had people try to find it, but there's no author.
Okay. Well, Myra?
I'll see if I can Google it real quick. Maybe it'll come up.
Okay. Well, Myra, we're looking up that answer for you.
That was in the Bible.
But there might not be an answer.
Yeah.
Mm.
Several people have looked it up. Want to use it.
So, O'Shea,
yes,
there's a question for you. And Myra wants to know how, when you began this relationship with Mary and you started doing this restorative process, and I know that it took a while and it was not immediate. And you remained in prison, like you said, a couple different facilities. How did that change your relationship with other people that you were in prison with? And if so, how did that, your relationships there, did it change?
Well, I can say this. When I was in the first 12 years, I went to segregation maybe 2 or 3 times a year. Segregation being a whole, that's where you're in jail. And that I would go for up to 120 days, maybe 15 days here, 15 days there, 120 days here, 220 days there. And after meeting with Mary, I had 5 years left in prison and I never went back to segregation. So, that was kind of a significant change. But as far as meeting with Mary and the prep with meeting with Mary, there were so many people there who was encouraging of it, who was supporting of it, and also felt like if they had the opportunity, they would love to have the opportunity to face, the people that they had hurt in their past. So yeah, I had a lot of support as far as it goes. And when Mary and I would speak in each institution that I was in, it would be a packed room, packed crowd, very emotional. Like, the media portrays us as so hardcore, no feelings, and we don't care about anything, and we're monsters and animals. Yet there would not be a dry eye in a room most of the time, after we share our story, and you can actually see a real mother's pain, up close and personal. And what we call in there, I hate to use a term, but victims, you actually get to see someone that's been victimized, somebody that's hurt, and there's a face on it. So it brings the humanity out of you, even if you are under those type of conditions and it's changing you and making you harder. Something like that kind of reminds you and brings you back. So yeah, it's a lot of positivity came out of it, and a lot of guys still call me or call me from prison or whatever. And if they get out of prison and I happen to see them somewhere in the world, they tell me how the story inspired them, how they're so proud of this and that, and they ask about Mary all the time. So it definitely had a powerful impact.
Thank you. I have a follow-up question. When you said that you were in segregation quite a bit and then you went less, was that a conscious choice, or was it sort of just a change that happened to you? Did you say, I am no longer going to I'm going to do everything I can to avoid segregation, or did it just sort of happen because of the relationship?
No, I think as people, well, I want to speak for myself, but I feel like a lot of people can relate to this. Is when you walk around being unforgiving for certain things, or you feel guilty about certain things and you hold on to them, what tends to happen is you'll walk through life self-sabotaging.
Mm.
Um, you'll do things because you feel a certain way to punish yourself, even in sometimes it's subconscious.
Yeah.
So I think I even do it now. I may feel like something's going good in my life. Oh man, I'm doing good. I'm having this and I'm having that. And then somewhere in the back of my mind, I feel undeserving of it. And what tends to happen when we feel undeserving is we punish ourselves. We put ourselves through things so, we can be right and being wrong. You can.
Yeah, well said.
Yeah, and I think that's what was happening. I think I was in there not, not holding responsibility, not holding myself accountable, and I was still beating myself up. So when I was able to see what forgiveness was, feel what forgiveness was, that's when I was able to begin to forgive myself and stop trying to punish myself as much or bringing my anger and everything frustration out on other people, doing what we call shadow boxing,
Yeah.
so it helped me I guess it was another one of those subconscious changes. And I'm glad that it happened because like I said, for the last 5 years, I didn't get in trouble. And even now we're battling with, the fact that I took someone's life, the fact that I still have to see the pain in their face. Sometimes I feel like I don't deserve some of the good things that happened to me. But at the end of the day, I also say I was a 16-year-old boy and I am now, 40-something-year-old man. And I have to forgive that 16-year-old boy in order for my 40-something-year-old man to thrive. And that's what kind of propels me forward now.
There's lots of layers of forgiveness. I hear you saying that it's not just the forgiveness of Mary for you, but you have to participate in the process with yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, because if we don't, then I further victimize her because I come out here the same or worse than what I went in, then I'm creating more victims. I'm showing her that her son died for no, you know what I mean? And
Yeah.
that's not fair. I'm further victimizing her. So
Another question is, and this is for either of you, Shirley asks, can you describe your relationship with each other now? And you touched on it a bit. I've heard you say it a little more explicitly in the past. I'm wondering if you could answer that. Who are you to each other now?
I'm his second mom.
second, not being lesser.
Right.
Second, not being lesser because she gets on me just like my biological mom do. It's funny because like with Mary, I go through a lot, it hasn't been easy transition. Even though I've been home for quite a while, there's still certain bumps in the road I have to go through and certain things that I still put myself through unnecessarily. And whenever I'm down and out or something is going on, I wind up getting this magical call from Mary. Hey son, what's going on? I haven't heard from you. Or, I can just be in the dumps and she'll call and it's like she tunes in and she knows that something is going wrong. And then I have to break down and tell her or something like that, but it's good to know that I have that support. Like she's always been there to support. Fuss at me when I'm not doing right, or if I haven't made a phone call and talked to her in a while, get fussed at. So our relationship is really mom and, son. We haven't spent as much time, like personal time with each other, especially lately. But when we do get together, it's all genuine. And nothing fabricated about it or anything.
Well, we also watched you two take care of each other even in this conversation. Like, what did I forget? What do I need to add? There's that. You two have that shared memory together that you also help. Another question is, first they say you're both amazing, so I want you to make sure you hear that. And then the question is, how have you been coping with the increase of violence that that has happened this summer. Has that, in what ways, I guess, has that touched you, or do you connect with that or not connect with that?
The COVID thing, it kind of makes it difficult and hard to really get out there and be involved. Well, at first it did. I don't want to get into my belief system as far as the COVID thing go, but I'm part of a motorcycle club now, and one of our things that we want to do is be very proactive in the community and try to bring about change and make things different. We figure a lot of motorcycle clubs, they get a bad reputation. You know, it's all negative what people see and think of bikers. But at the end of the day, there's a lot of bikers that do for their community, that do a lot for the community that goes unheard of. And to the point where even the authorities have reached out and asked us in certain instances if we can help patrol, if we can help do different things. And after the George Floyd case, we led, me and my group led protesters from one place to another one safely on our motorcycles, and they were behind us and we were kind of blocking traffic. So we're looking more with this COVID thing, doing whatever it is to not use it as an excuse to not be active in the community and try to see what we can do to try to make a difference out here, because the youth is just tearing each other apart, you know, in our communities. And just, what was it, yesterday or the day before, you and I were speaking about, Mary does this thing, her and the group does this thing called Code Red, where they stand out on one of the main streets of North Minneapolis and they hold up signs about stop the violence, don't shoot, and things of that nature. And she's been doing it for the last, 6, 7 years maybe?
Yeah, maybe.
Second Saturdays of the month. And she and I were just speaking about my club possibly being involved, and I was telling her I want to take it further and see if I can get other bikers involved as well. So that's one thing that we're going to try to do as far as that goes. But yes, violence impacts everyone. It impacts us all, whether it's a direct family member, someone you know. Anytime something happens, it's going to affect you. You know, just even in public relations, the way we look at each other and the way we have to be guarded now. Right. Shouldn't have to be that way.
We're all part of the same community, even if sometimes we are tricked into thinking we're not.
Yeah.
There's a couple more questions, and we only have a few minutes left, so I'm not sure we'll get through all of these, but let's try. So here's from another person. Your story is so profound and such an example for all of us about the power of forgiveness and the richness of life that can emerge when we truly forgive. How does your organization work with families now to find reconciliation and forgiveness? And then a second part of that is, does your work with death to life still use the restorative justice process?
Yeah, I believe so. We, our moms, like I said, we meet like once a month. And like right now, we're working on some posters for what's going on out here to try and help stop the violence. To me, it's just not good. I am so sick and tired of, hearing what's happening, and, and more moms being added to the list that have lost their child to violence. We're going to try to do what we can to bring about a change. When we met yesterday, all the moms were not really at a point to be able to go out and hold a sign right now, which is fine. I don't push anybody to do anything that they're not ready to do, And what was the other part of the question?
If you still use the restorative justice process.
I'm not for sure if I understand that question. Do we use it with dealing with our moms, or I'm not getting it.
Well, Chris, are you still involved in the restorative justice pieces? This is from Dr. Lifestyle promote.
Does it still promote restorative justice?
Justice,
I would say
sure,
yes.
yeah.
I would say yes, still promotes
Yeah.
restorative justice.
Yes.
We might not use their curriculum verbatim, or so to speak, but at the end of the day, it's still traces of it there, and that's the ultimate goal, is restorative justice. So,
Some people
That are,
and there's still people on the board that are connected with restorative justice.
Oh, okay.
Mhm.
Yeah. Okay. Well, there were two other questions that Myra, unfortunately, we are not going to be able to get to, especially because they were big questions about prison reform and reconciliation and forgiveness in prison reform. And that could be its own forum on its own. In fact, many, many forums. In fact, we really need to have that conversation as a society. But in this moment, I want to thank you both for your time and your vulnerability, for your story and sharing it with what in this format is a bunch of no faces. At least when you're in a room with us, you get to see who's asking questions, but all you've seen is me and Cody, and but there's 20 some people who are here with us as well.
wow, that's great.
So on behalf of all of us, all these faceless listeners, and Plymouth Congregational Church, and our larger community, I really appreciate you continuing to tell this story. O'Shea, at one moment you said it's just your story, but it's just yours, but it's yours, and that makes it no less powerful and no less necessary to hear. So I am profoundly touched again by hearing your story. So we from all our places in sort of silent ways applaud you like we would at the end of a forum and say thank you, and we hope to see you again soon. And for those of you listening out there, please join us again next week for our forum on the 27th, called The Spirituality of Radical Connection, with Mark Van Steenwyck, who is the executive director of the Center for Prophetic Imagination here in Minneapolis. And he will explore the spiritual condition of uprootedness that afflicts many of us. You can learn more on our website. Under the Explore button, it says Sunday Forum, and you can see what is there. Thank you all, and have a wonderful day. Thank you, O'Shea and Mary.
Thank you.
Thank you.
There be justice and peace in all of our future.
It's surely to come.
We don't have much choice. All right.